Which stock is the better buy, Nike or Lululemon? I'm going to answer that question in this video looking at 5 different metrics starting with revenue growth. So let's get right into it. Looking at revenue growth over the last 5 years, you see Lululemon ahead of Nike since 2019, nearly every quarter. Although Nike did have, I would say, 1 or 2 quarters where it was ahead of Lululemon. And in its most recent quarter, Lululemon with 28% growth. Nike coming up, but still not surpassing Lululemon at 17% growth. The next metric I wanted to look at is operating margin in the trailing 12 months. Again, in this metric, Lululemon ahead of Nike at 21.37 in the most recent trailing 12 months. But even if you go back all the way before 2014, Lululemon has earned a better operating margin than Nike in during that entire time, with Nike at 12.99% in its most recent trailing 12 months. Both of them are solid. Double digit operating margins are really good. It's just Lululemon is that much better. The next metric I want to look at is cash flow from operations to sales. How good is the company from turning each $1 in sales to $1 in cash, right? Because there's a lot of things that happen after you make $1 in sales. You have your cost of goods sold, you have all these other expenses. So how much of cash is left after you make $1 in sales? And in this metric, Nike in the recent trailing 12 months turned 5.45% of its sales into cash flow. Meanwhile, Lululemon turned 8.72% of its sales into cash flow from operations. Again, better than Nike in this regard, although both of these companies, Nike and Lululemon, have had a more difficult time since the start of 2022 in turning these sales into cash flow as consumer spending has shifted away from buying goods to buying services and going out away from home, restaurants and things like that. The next metric I wanted to look at is inventories. Because of what I mentioned just in the previous slide, consumer spending habits have shifted. They've quickly changed to now spending more money away from home, and that's left Nike and Lululemon stuck with a lot more inventory than they would like. Look at this. Just before 2022, Nike had about $6 billion of inventory. Now it's got 9.3 billion of inventory, so 50% more inventory at a time when consumer spending just quickly shifted, right? So they went from having all of these out of stock and shortages to now having an inventory glut. This problem is even worse for Lululemon. They went from a little less than 1 billion of inventory all the way up to 1.74 billion. So nearly 75% increase in inventory at a time when consumer spending has shifted to away from home spending, and consumers have also been more careful to getting more value for their dollar spent. They're not looking to spend more on expensive things. They've shifted to more cost conscious spending, and that's really more bad news for Lululemon than Nike. Lulu's products tend to be a little more on the expensive side. So really, this metric is the first one where I feel Nike's in a better position than Lululemon in the 4 metrics that we looked at so far. Lululemon doing a superior job to Nike over the last 5 years. Even though Nike's got a longer history of excellent performance, Lululemon is really coming on strong, challenging its rival in Nike. Finally, I wanted to look at valuation, and I chose to use the price to earnings forward metric. This kind of alleviates some of the concerns from inventory if I chose to use price to free cash flow. So looking at this metric, Nike is trading at a more expensive price to earnings forward of 38.8 compared to Lululemon at a forward PE of 27.11. So while both of these companies are excellent clothing apparel companies, if I had to choose just one of them to buy right now, I would choose Lululemon. So right now, Lululemon is the better stock to buy. It's got superior performance and it's trading at a less expensive valuation. So for that reason, I would go with Lululemon stock. All right, that's all I've got for this video. As always, I really appreciate you watching my videos. I hope to see you next time. I'll see you then. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.